play Dig Dug on the Intellivision. Now, as you can see, this was released in 1987 by INTV Corporation, which was the core of the Intellivision programmers left over from the Mattel Electronics days. They reformed as their own entity following Mattel Electronics shutting its doors in 1984, and they kept the Intellivision alive for its user base into the early 90s, somewhat surprisingly, because they knew they had a loyal enough user base to pull that off. Now, the story of this game in particular is fairly circuitous. You talk about a game that almost never got released. This game beat all the odds. First, let's take a look at it. We all know what's going on here. Dig Dug, Pukas, Figars, Underground, Rocks, Air Pumps. It's all there. Kind of a... nice. Right, I'm gonna go get this slice of pizza. Now, I know you're thinking, wait a minute, doesn't Dig Dug always eat vegetables? It's a slice of vegetarian pizza, okay? Work with me here. I mean, that totally looked like a slice of pizza and not a carrot. At least it did to me. Some compromises were clearly made on the graphical end of things to get the entire game on the TV screen at the resolution that the Intellivision was capable of generating its graphics. I don't think so, Figar. Now, if there's anything unusual about the release of this game, it is that it came from INTV Corp itself. And like I said, INTV Corp was a company formed by, the group known as the Blue Sky Rangers, who had been the driving force behind the Intellivision software library and the hardware at Mattel Electronics. But that's not where this game started. Squish. Nice. Oh, no, you don't. Ah! Puka! The game started its development life at Atari's AtariSoft division, which may or may not be a surprise. That is where Atari cooked up games that were being released for such competing consoles as the Intellivision, the ColecoVision, and home computer systems like the Apple II, the TI-99 4A, and so on. And the Commodore 64, IBM PC. We've run into, on Phosphor Dot Fossils, we have run into AtariSoft titles in, many arcade ports across many systems. The game was being designed by a programmer named Mark Kennedy, who had actually started, his resume actually started, as far as video games, at Mattel Electronics, where he programmed the Intellivision version, the original version, of Kool-Aid Man, and was also the co-designer of Kool-Aid Man. But the sole programmer, he took care of all the coding. Oh, 2 Figars, okay. We're getting tricky now. Oh, I don't think so. In fact, why don't you all follow me to a hideous death under this rock, now that you've cost me the ability to chase down that vegetable that I really needed for bonus points. You will pay dearly. It's interesting how the fire was still there. So, Mark Kennedy, formerly of Mattel Electronics, started this game as an AtariSoft product, and it was being slated for a 1984 release, except that with the rapid contraction of the video game industry in '83, Like quite a few Atari products, it never got released by Atari. Now, being aware that work had started on this port, INTV Corp bought the rights to debug and release the game under their own banner. They had to buy those rights from Atari because Atari as an entity still had the IP rights for the cartridge versions of Dig Dug, for home versions of Dig Dug really in any medium. And the reason it had to be debugged was that the only existing copy that had survived, you know, the purge of material from Atari was a prototype, an early prototype in Mark Kennedy's possession. So work started on this game in '84, and it finally saw release in mid-1987. By which game, you know, by which time, as far as you know, American gamers were concerned, this game was 5 years old. But the Intellivision kind of, it was one of the first consoles really to survive on kind of its retro cred, if you will, because it, you know, sales of hardware and software continued into the early 90s. And, you know, by that point, the kind of games associated with the Intellivision were, you know, sadly thought of as old hat, because by that point we had the NES, we had the Game Boy had just come out, the first iteration of the Game Boy. Yeah, y'all just come marching to your doom. I'll wait for you. Patiently. I'm a patient man. Are you a patient puka? I don't think so. Alright. Let's send that Fygar to his doom. I will get more points for the bonus vegetable than I will for killing that puka. Fair enough. So that is the story of how Dig Dug finally made it to the Intellivision across a span of 3 years, 2 different manufacturers, and 1 programmer who had just happened to keep a copy of his work, which just killed me. And I thank him for that. Oh, come on. I need you to not die. But I'm not going to get that lucky, am I? So there you have it. The story of Dig Dug for the Intellivision. Not a bad version of it. I mean, I could criticize the graphics for being kind of crunched down, but so much of the heart of the game is intact that it's really difficult to find anything to fault it.